Hello and welcome to this exploring session, and today we are continuing our journey through nature by Henry Medwall, play from the 1490s-ish, a morality play that we are about a third of the way through. We've got two more sessions to go. It follows a procession of a young man, a child being introduced to the world, and the question is very much, should he follow his reason, his thinking and his intellectual world, or should he follow sensuality and all the lovely physical things in the physical world, and who should have control? And in the first third, control has been wrested away from reason and has been handed over to a degree to sensuality. And yeah, we can see this this might go badly, may not, might be fine. We are going to approach the midpoint of the play in this session. There is a sort of potential break point in the middle of the play. There's a first and a second part, which we will crash through the barrier of into the first half of the second half, if that makes sense. So to continue our journey through this text today, we have reading Mankind himself is.
Hello, my name is Lynn Freitas. I live in the northwestern United States.
And reading the benched and largely ignored reason today is.
Hello, my name is Helen Good. I'm a historian. I'm in Hull.
Reading Bodily Lust and Sloth today is.
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk, and I think sloth is the consequence of bodily lust.
Reading Sensuality today is.
I'm Lois Potter, retired academic, cast against type, and living in London.
Reading Shamefastness today is.
I'm Eric, and yeah, we should all be ashamed, apparently.
Well, we don't know what you've done. So from reading Worldly Affection today is.
Hello, my name's Francis Cox. I'm an actor living in Amsterdam.
And reading Pride, the personification of pride today is.
Hello, I'm Sarah Blake. I'm an actor, writer and director living in Germany.
And I am your host, Robert Crighton. I am reading what few stage directions there are. There aren't many stage directions in this play. There's an awful lot of moments where it would be helpful if we had some additional stage directions added in. But for the most part, it's just a few entrances and exits. Where had we got to in the play? Well, mankind has been left with sensuality, basically, and sensuality has met up with pride, who got a wonderful sort of introductory comic monologue with his servant boy, and now sensuality has handed pride over to mankind, sort of left them, done the entree and just sort of left them alone, left them to it. So we're going to see what happens to mankind as has a little bit of a chat with pride.
Now, sir, what have you to say to me?
No great thing, sir, but I come to see and to know what manner man ye be, that all men praiseth so much.
Praise? Whom praise they?
Marry, you.
Me?
Yea, sir. I make mine avow, they give you a praising good, I know, I never heard none such, and surely you be right worthy. I see well now they do not lie, and therefore I did me hither high to acquaint me with you. But ye may say that I am bold.
Nay, you are worth thy weight in gold. Methinketh me to you much behold. I pray you, what is your name?
And my name is Worship.
Worship? Now surely the world told me it was my destiny to come to worship, or I die.
Truly, I am the same.
Now, Worship, I pray you tell me your wisdom and also counsel. You can advise me passing well in things that I have to do.
In good faith, anything that I may do to your pleasure, it is ready. I am your own, and pray you heartily that ye accept me so. But where ye ask counsel of me, meseemeth ye save not your honesty.
Mine honesty? Wherefore, let's see. I pray you show me why.
Marry, sir, for it is right fitting that a man of your behaving should have always sufficient cunning of worldly wit and policy to guide himself everywhere, and not be led by the ear, and beg wit here and there of every jacopi. You are well complexioned, be ye sure, and nature hath done on you her cure as much as upon any creature that ever I saw with mine eye. And by likelihood, sir, I wis ye have wit according to all this, or else nature hath wrought amiss, and that is not likely.
Now, certain, thanked be heaven's king, I have a right quick understanding. If ye show me anything, I can soon perceive it. But I was forbid by reason, or on mine own fantasy to run, or to take any presumption of mine own wit.
Said a reason so, marry. Fie on him, knave! It were better the hangman were in his grave than ever the lewd fool should have the governance of you.
Certain, nature advised me to follow reason what time that she put me first in authority that I stand in now.
Alas, alas, man, ye be mad. I see well ye be but a very lad. On my faith, I was very glad of your first acquaintance, and now I forthink it utterly that I ever knew you. Fie, fie, fie. I heard never certainly of such a novel chance. Will ye draw to that fellowship? I would ye have 3 stripes with a whip, even upon the bare hip. If I should not you grieve, he that would lordship enjoy and play ever still the old boy, meseemeth he doth but make a toy, and ye will me believe.
Worship, for God's sake, grieve ye not.
I wis ye are but an idiot. I pray you, sir, make not me a sot. I am no trifler. I have been in honour heretofore. Ye allow the counsel of a carl born before mine. I have it in scorn. It is a thing I cannot bear.
Whom mean ye, reason?
Yea, that same door.
What, is he a wise man?
He is a straw, because he keeps you under awe, and be therein blind.
And doth he without feigning? For hitherto I might do nothing but after his goodwill and bidding, and that grogged my mind.
Grog, quotha! It is no marvel, hardly. It shall grieve me certainly, as long as I am in your company, to see you demeaned in that wise. Ye be now in a good way, but in faith I like not your array. It is not the fashion that goeth now a day. For now there is a new guise. It is now 2 days agone, sith that men began this fashion, and every knave had it anon. Therefore at this season there is no man that setteth thereby, if he loves his own honesty.
So seemeth certainly that every man is fresher than I, and I wis that is no reason.
And here cometh in worldly affection and sensuality.
Reason, quoth that, no, no. But sir, wot ye what ye shall do? Hardly let us 2 go to some tavern here beside. Come on, I can bring you there, and let them alone with all this gear. Care ye nothing for the matter, but let them here abide. And ye will suffer, and let them alone. Ye shall see them devise you a new fashion, that all the world shall wonder thereon.
By God, that will I do goodly. But I pray you, sirs, do your diligence for this array, and spare none expense. And for a while I will go hence, and come again shortly.
And here man and sensuality go out. We'll just pause there. Yes, it's nothing is as expected in a morality / interlude of this sort of time for let's all go to the pub as sort of the first real fruits of his decline here. We just are waiting now with expectant bated breath for when he's sent off to a sex worker. That is usually happens at the same time. Hasn't happened here, so it's quite a chaste morality tale so far. I really liked what you did with Pride there. That was really nice. Whether he is affecting to be of that status or whether he actually is, it spins nicely. And I just love the way he does the flattery. Oh, I've heard such. Oh, you're man. Oh, I've heard such things about you. I've heard you're so clever. Oh, oh, you're not staying with reason. Oh no, he's not a good, not a good chap. Not one of us. PLU. Yeah. Any little thoughts about mankind's sort of slowly being drawn further into this net, as it were? Lynn.
The emphasis on clothing is interesting. I'm not sure what to make of that, although I have been taught that the clothing was really important and an important marker of status, and so perhaps that isn't surprising that fashion and the latest fashion and all of that should be a concern here.
Because pride spoke for what seemed like pages, but in fact wasn't, on the subject of what he was wearing.
Yeah.
I mean, his sleeves would have made an entire suit for an ordinary person.
Yes, yeah, he's very much into his fashions, and it's thing of drawing mankind into that as well, and all that. I don't like your clothes. I like not your array. It is not the fashion that goeth nowadays. So we've already had one costume change for man on stage. He's gone from his garment of innocency, his romper suit, to whatever mantle the world gave him. They gave him a hat and a girdle or something, I think, is it?
And a gown.
Yeah, and
so
girdles to tie it.
yeah, so he's taken his first costume change to sort of denote his changing status. So presumably, when they go off to the tavern, they're going to he's going to be a bit more like Pride. So that would be interesting to see what goes with that. Other thoughts, Eric? Did I see a hand a minute ago?
Yeah, I was gonna say that I find it interesting that Pride was like, oh yes, but like I have to go now because it's the fashion that I'm wearing is already 2 days, out of date. I have to go, or else I won't be fashionable anymore. And somehow that is like, it's like Pride overlapping with vanity, kind of. It's not quite like, I mean, Pride and vanity I guess are similar, but like it's sort of like the clearly narcissist side of things.
Yeah, if he was on Instagram, he would actually have to have 2 or 3 different costume changes per day. To throw it into that modern example, because that's just what you do. So yeah, absolutely. Yes. Other thoughts before we move on, Lois?
I think we may be about to get some on-stage tailoring, kind of corresponding to the famous cooking scene of pantomime. I'm not sure, but it looks as if pride and worldly affection are being left behind to devise something new for a man to wear.
Well, we'll see in a moment. We have had that in other plays before, certainly where costumes have been adjusted and trimmed down on stage, I seem to recall, later on, at least in history. So, maybe the analogy of... we're perhaps at the early end of this as a genre, but the analogy of talking about interludes and morality plays like this, comparing it with Panto, not so much in tone, but in the sense of it's a genre that people will become familiar with. So there might be scenes or set business that gets reused with some purpose rather than just laziness, because that's what you always have. You always have a costume change sequence or something like that. So that might be a thing. It might also not be a thing. I might just be spitballing there. You can ignore. You're free to ignore me. Disagree. There are comments. You go and make some. Other thoughts, Eric?
I also like that Pride started, with the compliments, blah, like, oh my God, you're so clever, so good looking, blah, blah. But then it sort of quickly turned into, yeah, you're the biggest idiot I've ever seen. You're doing this and you're doing that, and you're trusting reason, and you're trusting, all these people who you shouldn't be trusting. You should be trusting your own opinion. But like, man doesn't really have an opinion because he's not been around that long.
Yeah, he's sort of negging him, isn't he? Just doing him down so that and doing that sort of weird psychological trick. Other thoughts before we move forward? We've got a relatively chunky scene coming up, which is why I paused here. Okay, we will go into what is essentially a three-person playoff. We have on stage still Worldly Affection and Pride. Sensuality will return shortly without a stage direction, so it's going to be pretty much a three-person playoff for the duration. So Mankind has exited with Sensuality.
Brother Pride, now the weight of all this matter resteth in thee.
Tush, thou shalt see me devise it even straight. It is but japes that gear with me. I have none other studier days, pardie, but how I may new fashions find, and thereon I settle my labour and mind. Sir, our master shall have a gown that all the gallants in this town shall on the fashion wonder. It shall not be sewed but with a lace betwixt every seam, a space of 2 handful asunder. Then a doublet of the new make, close before and open at the back, on the back. No sleeve upon his arm. Under that a shirt as soft as silk and as white as any milk, to keep the carcass warm. Then shall his hosen be striped with corselets of fine velvet, slipped down to the hard knee, and from the knee downward his hosen shall be freshly garred with colours 2 or 3. And when he is in such array, there goeth a rutter, men will say, a rutter, huffer, gallant. We shall see these fools on him gaze, and muse as it were on a maze new brought into this land.
Now, by the Mary Virgin, this will set him on a merry pin, even as it should be. But ever I am in great fear that reason will whisper him in the ear, and turn his mind clear from this gear. This thing feareth me.
Reason? Nay, nay, hardly. He is forsaken utterly, sith I came to his company. He would not once appear. Nevertheless, for surety, Worldly Affection, I advise thee as shortly as ever it may be, for speed of the matter, to bring him shortly in acquaintance with all the company of mine affiance, and let them give continual attendance, every man busily after the property of his office. Then shall you see him utterly despise reason's counsel, on warranties, and forsake him utterly.
Nay, nay, sirs, care ye nothing, that matter is sped well and fine.
Is it so?
Oh, yea, by heaven king, even as we sat together at the wine.
Thou shalt have God's blessing and mine. But is it true?
Yea, sir, by this day, our master and reason have made a great fray.
How so?
By my faith, we sat together at the tavern next hereby, and anon who should come together but fleering Kate and Marjorie, she that beguiled you, pardie, so prately, and bare away your shirt the last morning, instead of her smock, while ye lay sleeping?
I wot whom ye mean, well I know, but that is nothing to this purpose. Tell on thy tale, for God and avow.
I shall anon, had I wiped my nose. Sir, when I spied them, anon I rose and called them unto me by name, and without more tarrying, anon they came, and sat down with us, and made nothing strange, as they be full courteous, ye know it well. And anon our master's colour began to change. Whereof it came, I cannot tell. His cheer was appalled every deal, and scant that he could speak to me one word. But start him up, and rose from the board. He said he would go lie down on a bed, and prayed me for the manor's sake that Marjorie might come hold his head, which, as he told me, began to ache. And so she hath him undertake to make him whole in an hour or twain, whensoever he hath any such sudden pain. What it meaneth, I wot never, but he liketh her physic so well that I trow the devil of hell cannot them two dissever. This have I done, and what trow ye more? Yet can I tell you better tiding?
What is that?
Marry, reason, that ye two spake of before, came even to us as we sat so drinking, and gave our master a heat worth a hanging, because that Marjorie sat on his knee, while that other horse sat talking with me. My master saw that he could have no rest, nor never be rid of this controlling. He played the man, and thought it best, and with an angry look to my seeming, drew out his sword without more tarrying, and smote Reason so on the head, that I have great marvel, but he be now dead.
Marry, then fill all the cups at once, if this be true.
Yes, by these 10 bones, I lie never a word.
Trust thou it is no feigned strife betwixt them two?
No, on my life. For when they fought, I ran between and cried, keep peace and leave debate. But ye would have laughed had ye seen how I departed them. And for all that, sometimes I clapped Reason on the pate and cried, keep the peace, as fast as I could, till I was hoarse, I cried so loud.
But can our master play the man now and fare with this gear?
Yea, make God a vow. And beware ye of one thing. Meddle ye no more with Marjorie. For by Cock's precious body, if our master may it espy, or have an understanding that ye use her company, I tell you he will be angry. He is so full of jealousy as ever I knew man.
Jealousy? Peace, man, be still. He can thereof no manner of skill.
No, but say what ye will, I am sure he can. He is now as familiar with bodily lust as ever ye were, yea, and thereto as great a swearer, when time requires. Knew I never of his age a man of better courage, to do all manner of outrage after our desires. Sith Reason and he were thus at variance, he hath be full of such dalliance, and hath called to his favor and acquaintance your kinsman by and by. Envy, wrath, gluttony, and covetise, sloth, and lechery become to his service. And utterly he hateth their contrary wise, and that he professeth openly.
And be these folks of his retinue?
Yea, every one, I tell you true. But marry, their names be changed new, for to blear his eye. I tell you, he is a sorrowful man, for Reason stirreth him now and then, and therefore do we what we can, it is little enow, hardly. Sirrah, there's first pride, as ye wot well, the sweet darling of the devil of hell. How his name is changed, ye can tell.
Yea, marry on the best wise. Worship, I ween, is now his name.
Yea, by the rood, even the same. And covetise, to eschew all blame, doth his name disguise, and calleth himself worldly policy. Wrath, because he is somewhat hasty, is called manhood. Then is there envy, and he is called disdain. Gluttony, for good fellowship is taken. And sloth his old name hath forsaken, and as fair a name hath he shapen as ever man could ordain. He is called ease, right comfortable to the blood, especially for them that lust to do no good. And among all others, I would ye understood that lechery is called lust. These be fair names, perdie, both good and honest, as seemeth me. As for their conditions, what they be, ye know well.
Very just. I know their conditions on the best wise, if they keep still their old guise.
Oh, yes, that they do, on warrantise.
But yet I have great marvel that covetise should dwell in his company.
Yeah, by my troth, lo, and so have I. But one thing I ensure you faithfully, and that I have espied well, that hitherto our master setteth no store by his counsel nor his lore. Marry, when his head waxeth hoar, then shall be good season to follow covetise and his way. Yea, time enow, another day. Even so I heard our master say.
By my faith, he said but reason, but all the remnant be well retained.
Yea, be sure it is matter unfeigned. And what ye who is greatly disdained with our master now?
Who?
By God, even Shamefastness. When he shall do any such excess, no shame can fear him, doubtless, I may say to you.
No? Then the craft were naught. But now, sirs, well bethought, sith the matter is hereto brought, it is time for me to go and make some provision of garments after the new invention, as he commanded me to be done. Therefore must I see, for it is committed to my negligence, and if he come hither while I am hence, I pray thee excuse mine absence.
Yea, and mine also.
Why? Wilt thou go with me?
Will I? Quoth yea, pardie. It is according for sensuality, with pride for to go.
And sensuality and pride go out. Oh my, there's a lot to unpack from that lot. As was predicted, lo to the tavern they went, and lo were the sex workers collected. Where should we start? Let's start on what the hell clothing is Pride describing there. Because some bits of it look like they wouldn't stay on a human body. Because what is it? A space betwixt every seam, a space of 2 handful asunder. How does that work?
But the shirt is pulled through.
Yeah, like the slashed.
You see, the
two
garments.
Yeah.
Yes, well, obviously it's an exaggeration.
Yeah.
The garments were tied together rather than being sewn. All ours are sewn, but theirs were laced together, and you could see the shirt, the fine shirt, between the panels.
Right. But this is sorry, Lynn, go on.
Just having very fine linen or even silk foundation garments that was a status marker, so that you see the very fine silk or linen shirt. Yeah, so
Pulled through the holes and sort of puffed out. Yeah.
More puffery than out. As it were. It's just the outer layer seems. I mean, it should be comically beautiful. I can vaguely see how that functions. Alan,
have you never seen the costumes they wear for the Oscars?
Yeah, I don't think they'd invented the
price is inversely proportional to the number of square inches of fabric.
Yes. Eric.
I was going to say that, well, because Lynn mentioned silk and velvet and linen and stuff, and like I was thinking that there were actually like laws in Rome, like ancient Rome, forbidding the wearing of silk by men because it was too transparent, like certain silks by men because it was too transparent, as far as I know, because like it showed parts that were not particularly desirable in public. And yeah, so I don't know, maybe that's the kind of thing they're going for, but maybe not.
No. Helen probably knows more about the sumptuary laws than I do, but there was a category of laws, different versions of them passed in different, every few years, because clothing and textiles were such a legible marker of status that only certain ranks were allowed to wear velvet and cloth of gold, and it got to be very, very detailed. You can only have this kind of buttons and this many buttons and so forth. Yeah, Helen, take it away.
Yes, the thing about the sumptuary laws is the reason there were so many of them and they were so often repeated is that nobody took a blind bit of notice of them. Yeah. And consequently, they were, at one point they said that any man whose wife had more velvet than collar and cuffs had to provide a horse for the next musters, a man on a horse. They were, and that must have led to a lot of interesting breakfast conversations.
Yeah,
but it was a constant battle, but people did not take that much notice of it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had to keep on repeating the laws.
And also, I think we should, mention where we are in time as well. For 1490s, this is something that will keep rattling on for 100 years. It just keeps going.
But here we've got mankind, who is the ruler of the world. He's got a throne. He's not bound by sumptuary laws. What we've got here are what they might call curious fashions. So you've got a lot of people who are a lot of extravagance, and nothing is sewed together but laced, and with excellent, the doublet isn't closed at the back. And he's got 3 different colours on his nether hose.
Yes, it is, it's elaborate and ridiculous and over the top, and of course that's what pride is pushing him to wear.
If anybody had asked me what a rutter was, I would have said a sea map, a sea chart.
In context, would it not actually be closer to rut as you would experience on the farm?
Yes, just a dashing chap.
No, I was thinking slightly coarser than that.
No, in the context of what he's saying there, context changing meaning.
A rutter huffer gallant, yes.
Anyway, that's enough, I think, for clothes. Let's go back to plot. So Sensuality comes in and says what they've been doing on their holidays, and there's several obvious questions here, but obviously, mankind has been introduced to sex with Kate and Marjorie. We've got the question of possessiveness on Marjorie's, but nobody else should hire Marjorie at any point, because he's going to get jealous of that, and that's it's something quite unpleasant is coming out of mankind, out of all of that. And also Reason is injured, presumed dead.
Possibly dead.
Yes, I'm assuming he's not dead, because the play would somewhat disintegrate under its own weight. But he's as far as the character's concerned, we think he's dead. Probably isn't. Eric.
I was going to say also that exchange, like the bit about, they've changed their names, by the way. Just like, it's kind of like, okay, signaling to the audience, but also like it reminded me of that whole scene in Tide Tareth No Man, where it's like, courage is going to be, courage is going to be courage, but then you've got like, all the other vices changing their names on purpose. Whereas this is much earlier, I'm guessing.
Yes, I'm not actually sure if there is an earlier play that does this.
Wow.
I mean, it becomes very standard that the vice characters are going to pretend to be someone else. I can't off the top. I'm going to have a quick look in a book while in a moment. But this is a game that becomes very and becomes a game, and it's a thing. The weird things about the names is some of them are sort of disguised names, and then Lechery is just called Lust, and I'm wondering, is Lust meaning something different?
That's what I was going to say. I think this is lust in the sense of joy. A lusty lad, a lusty month of May.
Just exuberance, just locker room talk.
Not. There is a meaningful lust which is not sexual.
Lust for life.
Yes, it just means joy, exuberance,
enthusiasm.
Yes,
because I like gluttony, for good fellowship. Is that sort of thing. I'm not a glutton. I'm just good in company. That's what we do when we're together. We eat, don't we? Yes.
And sloth is ease.
Yes.
Over here.
Not sure about disdain being again a more positive thing for envy.
I do love the fact that wrath becomes manhood.
Yeah, that
What
made
an
me laugh.
insight there that yeah, masculinity and anger are tied together there. That is, it has a kind of prescience to it that's almost a little spooky.
Yeah, I mean, and it does feel deliberate. It doesn't feel like it's, you know, that's just that shift. You know, it's you know, there is something about that's what young lads are like. You know, they get into angry fights, and you know, somehow that's manly, and it's just
That's manly. Yeah.
Lois, I saw a hand a minute ago.
Well, I'm just going to comment on disdain because I think it's a kind of comment on the age when I think you were meant to show a kind of proper pride in your own status and an ability to put down those that were beneath you, you know, in the right way. But disdain could be a sort of good quality to have, or at any rate to display on the right occasions.
Sort of distance, you know, sort
Yeah.
of, rather
Haughtiness.
than, yeah. Well, you are just a proper elevation.
Yeah, noblesse oblige. I don't know.
Alan.
I'm just wondering whether the vice names they've changed away from are ones which are explicitly spoken against in scripture or the preachings of the time, whereas the synonyms or alternative names that are adopted are less subject to that sort of pejorative comment.
Yes, it's like covetous being worldly policies or the acceptable face of capitalism. It's it's
Are
more,
these
it's
the
more,
7 deadly sins?
Yeah.
pretty much, yeah.
Close.
Yep.
Yeah.
So which again we have earlier examples of this. We also have later examples of a parade of sins in this fashion. That said, we haven't met it. We've only met Pride so far. Eric.
I also wanted to say earlier that there's a line that made me think of Elvis. The bit about
renowned late medieval playwright. Yes.
Yeah. No, there's a line. I think it's when Sensuality is describing how Marjorie and man can't be like torn apart, and like there's an Elvis song where he kind of goes. Once I catch you in the kissing star, it's a team of wild horses couldn't tear us apart. But then obviously in this script, it's you know, the devil can't tear them apart, which is a very weird association for, yeah. I don't know, my brain works in weird ways.
No, that's fine by me. I like random connections. Other thoughts about this? It's a lot more subtle than, you know. It's playing different levels and introducing little ideas, and it's quite playful. It's not a sort of blunt instrument that we sometimes get with some other morality plays. It is sort of playing around with this quite nicely. Helen.
Yes, it's a big scene just to be reported.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say, I was thinking, for performance purposes, I might reenact the smashing in the head of Reason while they're narrating it. I would probably make this a bit more dynamic.
And I think we need to see Marjorie and her fellow whore, what's she called?
Kate, is it?
Kate.
Yeah.
They're always Kate and Marjorie, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
You know, Marjorie Mumblecross, the early years.
Now then.
I wouldn't put that past Marjorie. She does dance. So that's Ralph Royston.
Yes, but she was knackered afterwards.
Go watch the other video. Other thoughts before we go on too much of a random tangent there, Eric?
Why are I mean, because I've not done any other like morality plays with this kind of thing, or over this era, I guess. But I was wondering, why are the women given names as opposed to, you know, sort of like, I don't know, envy or lust or whatever you want to call them?
They do seem to be real world elements as opposed to allegorical figures, aren't they? They're yeah. So for that reason, basically. But maybe they will be personified by some of the deadly sins later on in a sort of double-minding thing. I don't know whether there's just a convention by now of generic names for sex workers, and you know that sort of resonates. I don't know. I have no idea. is the answer, basically. I don't know. But it's a good point to raise. Any thoughts on that, apart from just simply outside of the frame of the allegorical narrative? Okay. Anything else before we move forward? No, I see no hands. So we are going to go on to Worldly Affection has been left on stage. So this is a bit of a bridge moment. Worldly Affection gets a little bit of a speech.
Now the matter is almost in good case. After the world's mind and pleasure, there is no more, but now I must encompass, with all my wit and busy endeavour, how it may be stablished and continued sure. For a little fantasy of man's own will may quail this matter and utterly it spill, and if he vary again, of scruple, imagination, or else by the suggestion of the foresaid reason, one thing I am certain, he will no longer me support, and that were a shrewd crank dort. Therefore, it is best that I resort to my master's presence, and see of what demeanour he is. I am greatly to blame, I wis, for that I saw him not all this, sith he departed hence.
And out goes Worldly Affection and Reason. Reason's not dead, people. Enter Reason, bandage head, I don't know.
O good Lord, to whom shall I complain and show the sorrows of my mind? And nothing for mine own cause certain, but only for the decay of mankind, which now of late is waxen so blind, that he hath despised and forsaken me, and followeth every motion of his sensuality. What availed at the beginning that nature committed me to his service, and charged me that before all thing, of all his guiding I should take the enterprise, when he lusteth not to follow mine advice, but followed the appetites of his sensual affection, as a brute beast that lacketh reason. And yet, notwithstanding that he doth me disdain, I will resort unto him again, and do my labour and busy plain, to essay if I can him refrain from such beastly living. But first will I stand hereby, in secret manner to espy some token of grace in him, whereby I may discern and find that he hath any shamefacedness, after his great surfeit and excess. And if it be so, doubtless, it shall content my mind.
So Reason's going to linger in the background there, and Man cometh in, followed by Worldly Affection.
I say, sirs, where is worship, can ye tell? In this place I left him last?
Sir, I warrant ye he is occupied well in ordaining your garments full fast. He departed from me in great haste for that intent, and so he desired that I would tell you when need required. He showed me his mind, or he went, how he had devised your garment, and if it be made after that intent, as he told me, then ye were on that vestor, every man. When ye were on that vestor, every man shall do your honour, as becometh a man of your haviour, and so it should be.
Yea, but what will Reason say when he seeth me in that array?
Reason? Marry, let him go play to the devil of hell. Ye promised me at the beginning that ye would no more be under his guiding.
No, but yet it were according to have therein his counsel. Man without reason is but blind, and if I should speak after my mind, I can well a difference find betwixt man and a beast, when he hath reason in presence, and duty obeyeth his law and sentence.
Why have ye such a spiced conscience now within your breast that changes your mind so suddenly? I am sorry and ashamed, truly, on your behalf.
No force, hardly. Thou leadest me all wrong, and therefore I will no more follow thee.
Not worldly affection?
No, pardie, nor yet thy brother Sensuality. I have followed you too long.
Is that your mind?
Yea, doubtless. And now I will seek Shamefastness, to whom I trust I shall redress all my misdeed.
And, sith thou wilt needs to shame bow, I pray God send thee shame enow, and yet I trust make God avow. Once thou shalt have need to call me again to thy service.
Nay, nay, on warranties. Now, sir, who can me advise what is best to do?
Well, as worldly affection has exited a couple of lines earlier, enter shamefacedness.
Sir, if you lust to have mine acquaintance, I am ready to give you attendance. Happily my service shall you advance. I am called Shamefacedness.
By your troth, are ye the same?
Yea, forsooth, that is my name. Alms deeds I can attain, and help for to repress when ye have done offence or sin. If ye will mercy and grace win, with shamefacedness ye must begin. This way ye must take.
Ye be the man, without feigning, that I wished for or ye came. I am glad now of your coming. Pray you with heart entire, when I have need thus, to come near.
So will I do. Ye may trust it verily. Whensoever ye call, ye shall find me ready.
And he goeth out, and reason cometh forward.
Sir, is it your mind to do as ye say?
Yea, that it is, as God me speed. Heard ye all this matter, yea or nay?
Yes, that I did in very deed.
Oh, ghostly reason, I have greater need of your help than ever I had before. Help me now, and I shall never forsake you more. Since I forsook your company, I have committed much folly. I am ashamed, certainly, when I think thereon. Now I have refused utterly all such manner of company, and thus I have done verily of mine own motion.
Then my help shall be ready as oft as ye me call. It is my duty for to do. And of your offences will I make no rehearsal. But whatsoever ye have done hitherto, to me ward let it pass and go. Against God your offence is great. Of the which matter I will not long treat, but this comfort of me ye shall have. If ye be contrite, as ye pretend, God is merciable, if ye lust to crave. Call for grace, and soon he will it send, and be not in purpose hereafter to offend. Accustom yourself in the ways of virtue, and be not in doubt, grace will ensue.
Sir, it is my mind and intent hereafter to be your true obedient, and never more to assent to such folly again.
And upon that condition I take thee unto my tuition with all heart's affection, never to part a twain. And for this season here we make an end, lest we should offend this audience, as, God defend, it were not to be done. Ye shall understand, nevertheless, there is much more of this process, wherein we shall do our business and our true endeavour, to show it unto you after our guise, when my Lord shall so devise, I shall be at his pleasure.
And thus endeth the first part, whether it's the first part of an evening or maybe over 2 days, I do not know. Just a general textual note in the original, it's not shamefacedness, it's shamefastness. That's a modernisation that's been added to this particular version that we were looking at. Yes, Fairy Godmother has turned up after mankind has basically turned a bit on worldly affection, because he's turned up saying, worldly affection says, right, your new suit's on the way, and worldly affection is, he's getting a bit second thoughts here, isn't he? He's sort of going, well, what will reason say when he sees me wearing it? He's going, well, ignore reason. And so, well, I'm not going to ignore reason. And then they have a bit of Barney, and worldly affection leaves, and shame Shamefastness appears, sort of lingering there, just going, "I am here, ready." Am I praising that fairly? And then, of course, reason comes out once it's all over, and says, "I'll always be there. I'll always be your friend." So it's a little hint of hope, that he's fallen, but it's not over. He's not out. He's not out. He's not doomed. There's more to come next time. Helen.
I think that we could, saving Ellen's present, dispense with shamefastness, because he has turned towards reason. I mean, shamefastness doesn't actually make any arguments.
I think he's almost he's a representation of what he's actually feeling at this time. He's feeling shame.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's there to argue on the behalf of shame. He's there to just personify that the mankind is feeling shame, perhaps.
He's hungover.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, he's just come out of with Marjorie and all the drinks they had the night before, and he's going, maybe this is not the life for me.
Those last two lines of reason are addressed to Cardinal Morton, presumably.
I think most of that last speech is, I think, after "Never to part a twain," and then he turns to the audience, "And for this season here we make an end."
Yes.
So yeah, it's very much, that's the end of part one, guys. Peeps. We'll be back. If our Lord is happy with us. It's not down to us, it's what the Cardinal wants. So Lois.
Yeah, it looks as if they don't actually know when the next half is going to be played. It says, "When my Lord shall devise." So maybe this, I don't know, it must be part of some sort of long period of celebrations, and the play is going to be stuck in somewhere.
Yes.
Or else it's just a pee break.
Yes. Yes. Yes, I've done gigs like that where you
refreshments,
where you have no control over the interval, because it's all very much dependent on when one person sits down. Doesn't matter about the rest of the audience. You have to wait for a person to sit down, and that feels quite plausible. It's almost certainly sort of a, as part of an ongoing series of entertainments at, say, Lambeth Palace or something like that, over, say, Christmas or some such series of feast days, and so could be a pee break. It could be at some point over the next few days, depending on the mood of our patron. We're going to do it at some point, but when, might fancy some hunting tomorrow. Who knows?
House to be shot,
See what the weather's doing.
Yeah. Especially if it is winter, you're going to take the good days while you can.
Of course, if this is being done in a highly religious household, perhaps that is a fair enough reason for not bringing on the Marjorie and Kate.
Well, mild spoilers, only mild because you know who you're playing. We're going to get some of the 7 deadly sins turning up in a bit, or more 7 deadly sins. So it's an interesting question. Which ones turn up? Is an interesting question. Lots of hands. Sarah.
It doesn't feel to me like a particularly pious play. It feels to me like a very psychologically accurate play. I mean, it doesn't seem to be, there's a lot of really good observations about, the state of mankind and what happens and the kind of process of what he goes through. But even though it's obviously a morality play, it probably, perhaps it will get more preachy later on, but it seems to me to just be a really good and quite sophisticated observation rather than something that is ramming the whole piety message down the viewers' throats, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. Lynn, I think you had your hand up first. I see lots of other people as well.
I was just going to say this seems awfully early in the plot, such as it is, for mankind to see the error of his ways. So I'm wondering if this is sort of a false conversion, and he falls back into worldly affection and sensuality, and then has to be saved again, or if the whole second half does get kind of preachy. So we shall see.
We shall see. We have had a respite of Fallen coming back in the earlier Castle of Perseverance. So having things come in waves, you've got to keep going until you're dead, being good. That's the problem with being good. You can't just one day decide to be good and that's enough. You've got to stick with it. Lois, then Alan.
Yeah, well, we've already had the point made that covetousness seems like an odd person in with the other sins, and the point is made that he will come in later. I mean, that this is a sin of old age, essentially, which is also what happens in the Castle of Perseverance. I think there's this feeling that mankind is kind of finished with youth, and that he's therefore got rid of the sins of youth, which are mostly, drunkenness and lechery and so on, and he'll find something else to do now. But, he's reached a state of reason. I think this is part of just a general picture of the pattern of someone's life. It's also interesting, though, that he seems to arrive at that himself. I mean, and partly with the help of reason. I think this is why it's a pre-Reformation play. I mean, I don't think that Reformation theology would really allow that man could achieve any sort of conversion without God's help. I mean, there would have to be some kind of divine figure appearing to make that work.
Yeah, and I mean, structurally, I'm thinking that there is an element of introducing shame and reason returning to him. There is in part just simply to end on a note of you could end the play there in an unsatisfactory. If some people aren't going to make it for the next session, it's a sort of ending, even though it's not a very satisfactory complete one, and you can sense there's more to come. So I'm wondering if there's a structural sense of the need for that, if it's a diffuse performance practice. Alan.
Yeah, I was thinking that that sort of close of that first part is all reminiscent of sort of a musical or a stage show that's actually giving a bit of an upper at the end of the first half, so that the audience are encouraged to return after the interval.
Yes.
Rather than having a down.
Yeah, it's not all Venerian sin. It's not all Venerian. It's not all Venerian sin.
Yeah. And the other thought, coming back to the sort of the preachy point, I think we maybe been slightly spoiled by the stuff we've done with people like Bale, which is excessively preachy. Whereas this is probably getting the point across in a slightly more gentle fashion.
I'm not sure Bale is exactly preachy. He's more sort of spittle-flecked. He actually keeps the actual preaching quite tight. It's when he gets into the hate. You don't get the hate here in the same way. But it's a good point, yes. There are other plays available later on where, by God, do they preach. Sarah.
Lois mentioned this, but just going back to the thing of why does this come so early? Why does this apparent conversion back to sanity come so early? It probably is to do with the structure, with finishing on a slight high, so that the people who can't make day two get some sort of resolution. But also, I mean, that is going back to what I was saying about it being psychologically, right. I mean, that is what happens, isn't it? You reform. You wake up the next day and you think, oh God, I shouldn't have done that. I'm never going to do that again. And you don't until the next time you do it. So it's like, again, it's a really, really good psychological observation, because you kind of you decide you're going to do things differently, and then you find yourself slipping back into old habits. So I'm going to be really, really interested to see how it goes in part two.
Eric, last thing before we move forward.
Yeah, I was going to say that, like, because we're talking about it ending on a high, but then I think of other things that have ended on a high before the break, like, you know, the troublesome reign of King John, where it's like, oh yeah, Arthur's alive, and then 5 seconds later, you know, next scene, he's dead. It's like I can't help but wonder if that's how this play is going to go, and then like reason and shamefacedness are going to have to drag man out of the muck and sort of clean him up and stuff.
Though, to be fair, this is a structural first and second part as opposed to a sort of artificial added first and second part. So, you know, but you're right. I'd be interesting. Yeah. So, you just jump a few years and it's, it's just sitting there going, oh, I said I'd never do this again. Okay, we're going to leap into the second part, and it starts off with reason and man come in first, though you wouldn't know it for a while, because it's mostly reason doing what reason does. And yes, so it's reason and man.
I assemble the life of mortal creature to the assiege again, a strong town or castle, in which there is much busy endeavour, much worldly policy with diligent travail on every side, which part shall prevail, by sleight of engines or by strong power, or other to subdue and bring into danger. In such case and manner of condition is wretched man here in this life earthly, while he abides within the garrison of the frail carcass and cavernous body, whom to impugn laboureth incessantly the world, the flesh, the enemy, these three, him to subdue and bring into captivity. And for to show you what wise they us impugn, first doth the world give us as elective to cover riches and worldly renown, with other vanities that be used in this life. Next, that our flesh, which ever is in strife against our spirit, doth provoke and excite us to accomplish our sensual appetite. And last of all is our great enemy, which ever hath us in continual hatred of old and cankered malice and envy, that he oweth to us and all the kindred of all the ancestors of whom we do succeed, nor yet ceaseth his malice unto this day, us to endanger in all that he can or may. And certes, these our said enemies be of their nature so mighty and so strong, that hard it will be for us in any wise against them war or battle to underfong. Also our garrisons and fortresses to maintain long. Again their engines without spiritual grace we cannot perform in no manner case. Wherefore it is to us right behovable busily to pray God that is immortal, beseeching him as he is merciable to have compassion and pity on us all, and not to suffer us any wise to fall into such folly and utter mischance, as should them grieve and do displeasance. Also it behoveth on our part to flee all such manner of occasion as may put us in fear or jeopardy of their displeasure in any condition, newfangleness and other nice invention. We must forsake in all manner wise, and acquaint us with their contraries, quia contraria contrariis curtantur, etc. I tell this tale, sir, to you, trusting that it be not done in waste. You remember, as I suppose well enow, how it is not fully 3 days past, sith he me promised and bound it fast, from that day forth to be obedient unto my counsel and advisement.
Yea, sir, so I did in very deed, and yet it is my mind and intent to follow the same. Have ye no dread?
If ye do not, ye shall yourself repent. Now fare ye well, for I must be absent, as for a season, and for your comfort, whensoever ye call me, I shall to you resort.
Then he goeth out. Yes, call on your fairy godmother, and she will appear. Just very briefly to note on that, it gets very, very heavy there. The enemy, it gets very reminiscent of not only Castle of Perseverance, but also the Psychomachia, that idea that it's based on. This fight that's going on, and it becomes it's a bit hardcore, actually, from Reason there. A bit hardcore. But yeah, Reason now is going to go away, because if Reason doesn't go away, then there's no plot. Francis?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, I found Reason's departure there a little abrupt. And I mean, I know it's kind of, it's a plot device and all of that, but, we weren't even given a reason. It's just, I've just got to go off for a season.
Yeah.
Call on me when you need me.
Yeah. It does feel very Pantoian, that moment, doesn't it? It's just I will be here when you call.
Yeah.
Or I'm doubling with somebody else and I can't be on stage.
I hadn't thought about that.
I don't think there's much doubling, but I think there may be some doubling in this. It's difficult to tell. Sarah?
We do have a reason why Reason goes away. Because man says, and yet it is my mind and intent to follow the same. Ye have no dread. Well, you can take that two different ways. You could read it as like, oh yeah, and I am going to do exactly what you say. But you could also read it as like, and yet I'm just going to make up my own mind. And you just go away, and I'll just do my own thing, and it'll be fine. So I think there's a slight ambiguity in that reply of man's. Well, at least you could play it ambiguously, and of course that is what people do. They listen to their reasonable selves, and then they go, yeah, okay, that's probably wise. But you know what? I'm just going to go and do my own thing and see what happens.
Yes, it's one of those things. There's no point teaching someone if you're just going to always be there.
Yeah.
So sometimes the teacher has to step back, and so Yoda has to go, so that Luke can really. Anyway, I'm stopping there. Lois.
I just wanted to point out that I think we now know that this play is being put on 3 days after the first part, because that's what Reason says. It's 3 days ago that you promised to follow my advice.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Yes, excellent. Helen.
Yes, or it could be 3 minutes.
Yeah.
A pissing while, you understand.
Yeah.
Has anybody got any idea what underfong? Oh, sorry, it's in the chat.
Yes,
undertake.
Many of us have gone in. Yes.
Yeah.
It has turned up in other plays, so I was able to put my thumbs up very quickly.
Well, I just Googled it, but I came up with an entirely different meaning to you, Rob. So
well, with it, the meaning is mutable depending on the context of the line. So
yes,
in this case,
undertake would do
would make
well
sense.
there. War or battle to undertake. Yes, fair enough.
Eric, very briefly before we move on.
You can just kind of see all these unfun things like Reason or Shamefastness and stuff going, hey, if you need me, call me, or doing like a Tina Turner type thing, or Tammy Terrell kind of and like, hey, we're fun as well, but we're not actually. But yeah.
Okay, so we're going to carry on as we're going to see the return of Sensuality, and it's a reasonably long scenette with Sensuality and Man before additional bodies, as it were, enter. So Reason has exited, leaving Man alone, and Sensuality cometh in.
God forbid that ever he come again. Jeez, you, how may you this life endure? Meseemeth it should be to your great pain, sith ye be of good complexion and nature, to forbear the worldly sport and pleasure, as ye have done now a great season, and all by the foolish counsel of reason. Where is your lusty heart become, that served you so well this other day? Now, so help me God and Halidom, I have great marvel how ye may live in such misery, and this, dare I say, without ye take some other ways. By my troth, it will shorten your days. And though I say it, that were pity, for by Christ, and ye were gone, many a good fellow would make great moan.
And then he weepeth.
I weep you so.
Let me alone, it will none otherwise be. And ye saw the sorrowful countenance of my company, your old acquaintance, that they make for your sake. I dare say ye would moan them in your mind. They be so loving and so kind, that I am sure if ye endure in this peevish opinion, it will be their confession. There is none other remedy, but for sorrow they shall die.
Nay, God forbid they should do so.
In faith, without ye help thereto, there is none other way.
I will help it in all that I may, and wist by that what mean.
Mary, call them to your company.
St. John, I am content. For I may say here to thee, since I forsook my liberty and did to reason ascend, I had never a merry day, but lived under awe and dread alway, nothing to mine intent. Another while I will me disport, and to mine old company resort.
Oh, then shall ye them comfort, and yourself also. Wot ye who will be very glad?
Who?
Marjorie.
Why, was she sad?
Yea, by the mass, she was stark mad, even for very woe when she heard tell of this chance. And because she would live in penance, her sorrow for to quench, she hath entered into a religious place at the Green Friars hereby.
Yea, has she? Alack, good little wench, in a house of straight religion.
Oh, yea, as any that ever was begone, sith the world stood.
Be they close nuns as others be?
Close? Quote, nay, pardy, that guise were not good. Now you must beware of that gear. Nay, all is open that they do there, as open as a goose eye.
And cometh any man in their cell?
Yea, God forbid else. It is free for everybody. And besides all this, they be ex omnigenti cogniti. No nation they forsake, without it be beggars going by the way, that have never a penny to pay for that they do take. And yet can I beggars thither lead, where they shall, for lumps of bread, satisfy their desire. Such drabs some there be that require none other fee, nor yet any other hire.
Be they not wedded as other folks be?
Wedded, quoth it, no, so motith thee. They will not tarry, therefore. They can wed themselves alone. Come, kiss me, John. Gramercy, Joan. Thus wed they evermore. And it is the more to commend, for if the woman hap to offend, as it is their guise, a man may let her alone with sorrow, and wed another whore on the morrow, even of the same wise.
Forsooth, this is a noble religion. It stirs me to great devotion. For to see that place, canst thou bring me thither? Well enough.
Yea, and it were midnight, I make God a vow, as dark as ever it was.
But where is bodily lust now?
And then cometh in bodily lust, with him worldly affection, sensuality standeth aside.
Harry, sir, I've seeking and sought you these 3 or 4 hours.
I make God a vow, you give me shrewd attendance all these 2 days I could not be spy.
Sir, ye know well that ye and I be never much asunder, albeit I be from you among.
And now meseemeth thou hast tarried too long, which to me is great wonder.
Wonder? Yea, pardie, for an hour or twain, or for passing while and come again. Here is a sore matter. When was I so long absent as now? And yet I was for to seek you at the other side of the water. The the place that ye was of, Buddy. Understand ye what I mean?
Yea, yea.
Tell me in mine ear.
Quid as Latinum propter lestuis?
What, Latin? Now this of the news. I heard never this air. I trow ye begin to wax shamefaced.
Nay, nay, hardly. That gear is past. Many days agone. I am as wanton as ever I was.
It were arms to hang you else, by the mass, by the hard neck bone. Will ye go now with me to a place that I shall show you the smartest place that ever ye saw with eyes?
What thing is it, young or old?
Whatever it be, it is able to be sold. It shall like you on the best wise.
For my love, let us some night be there, at a blanket or rare supper, at a banquet or rare supper, and get us some wanton meat, so we may have some dainty thing. Yet would I spend 20 shilling, wheresoe'er I get it.
Nay, nay. Will ye spend a couple of crowns? And should be no gentleman in these 10 towns be better served than ye, nor be received more honestly as to an house of bawdry, for a banquet or a junkery, for a dish 2 or 3?
Yea, that will I spend with all mine heart.
By your leave, I will depart to make ready this gear.
What, now in all this haste?
Yea, for God, sir, I am aghast. Other knaves will come thither before us and take up all.
See there too, I pray thee.
So I shall, else fly on all together.
And out goes Bodily Lust.
Now will Marjorie make great moan because ye come not.
Nay, let her alone. I'm not her bondman party. She hath disappointed me ere now.
Yet on my faith, sir, and I were as you, at the least I would excuse me. Send her word that ye in no wise may this night keep her promise, and if ye do not so, she will so mourn that, as I think, of all this night she will sleep no wink. She shall be so full of woe.
Yea, on my peril, take no care. This answer will I defer and spare, till I be certain what answer bodily lust shall bring of this other pretty new thing when he cometh again.
Will it please you that I go to Marjorie in your stead?
Marry, that were merry. Wouldst thou serve me so?
Why, sir, by my troth, I mean but well.
Yea, what thou meanest I cannot tell, but that shalt thou not do.
In good faith, sir, ye may do worse. For while I have anything in my purse, or any penny to spend, I will make her even such cheer as I would mine own wife if she were here, else God defend.
Yea, I thank thee for thy good will, but as for that cheer, keep it still, till I call thereon.
By God, sir, for good love I spake it, and now that I see ye will not take it, I shall let it alone.
And re-enter Bodily Lust.
How now? Hast thou been yonder away?
Yea, sir.
Et quae novelis?
Je ne sais. I could not speak with her, nor with none of her folks.
Not with one?
No, they be asleep, every one, all that ever dwelt there.
How knowest thou whether they be asleep or no?
Marry, she herself told me so when I rapped at the door.
It seemeth she was not asleep then.
No, she was abed with a strange man.
A mischief on her, whore! I would this fire were in her tail, I make God avow.
That needeth not, she is hot enow. 'Twere more arms to get, some cold water, fire to quench. I tell you, it is warm a wench as any in all this street. I suppose I'd angered her ill,
How so?
for I rang her a nil that waked her from her sleep. I gave her peal for a friend's souls. A man might have heard the noise from Paul's to the farthest end of Cheap. She saw that I would not cease but knock, and rap still at the gate. She opened a window and put forth her head. Hence 40 pence, quoth she, Jack a noble is abed. This night he come too late. Ah, standeth the wind so cold, quod I? Cuck you title, we have a proxy. This gear goeth all a-wide. And so I came thence at a great pace, till I came hither. Lo, this is the case. Have I not well hied?
Well, man, there is no more to do. That we cannot have, we must forego. There is none other remedy. Lo, worldly affection, how mayst thou see thy counsel has naught that thou gavest me?
No more it was truly.
Yea, I told thee as much before. It is good to be sure evermore. Therefore, now let us go and resort again to our old hostess. That is the best way now, as I guess.
Yea, hardly do so.
And then they three go out, and I think we'll pause there. Quite a lot going on there. In terms of the way the con is functioning, there's a general movement to make man spend more money. He's not spending enough money on his entertainments, so he needs to spend more. They're appealing to his jealousy about what Marjorie's up to. Marjorie seems to be the in there. He's very fond of Marjorie. Bodily lust suggesting that maybe some other entertainments are available if he's willing to spend the money, which he's less keen to do. And he sort of goes off and comes back again and says, "Well, no, not the new person. That's not going to work out with somebody else. So maybe we'll have to go back to Marjorie." That's how I passed it. Anyone else disagree, feel free to leap in. So yeah, man is being lured back in. Does he think, what is he thinking of Marjorie? And how conned is he being, and how was all this functioning? Eric.
Yeah, but he does say at some point that, like, I can't remember if it's man or worldly affection or maybe even sensuality, that it was this whole like scheme started 2 days ago. So it's bodily lust. Like, bodily lust left him 2 days ago, but then he's like not seen reason in 3 days. So I'm guessing like there's some sort of one against the other kind of thing going on. So yeah.
He's just left reason. Was it that? I think he left. He may have left bodily lust a couple of days ago.
But before that,
when reason.
Yeah. But when reason came in, he said it's been 3 days since we saw each other, and then when obviously reason left, and then bodily lust comes in and says, "Oh yeah, I've not seen you in 2 days." So maybe that's kind of what's going on.
No, I think it was, reason says you sort of repented 3 days ago, and then bodily lust hasn't seen him for several days because obviously since he's repented, he's staying away from bodily lust. But now what I can't quite work out is what the relationship between sensuality and bodily lust is. Why do we need both of them?
Well, bodily lust is the procurer, isn't he? He's the pimp for Marjorie. Or it seems to be, and therefore he's there specifically about the procurement side of the entertainment industry that is available here. Alan,
I think we did discuss yesterday sensuality rather is a more general attribute of experience and sensations, whereas bodily lust is a much more specific attribute. That's the way I read it.
We're also in that dangerous territory of where the allegory slightly breaks down when it starts interacting with the real world. I see his bodily lust being essentially an outside factor that vaguely connects with his psyche, but is if we start trying to examine this too closely, it's going to start falling apart around us. That's always the danger. Yeah. I do love the way he uses the use of Latin, use of French is quite nice, because it's like he doesn't want to project out to the world, the going and visiting sex workers, what's the Latin for stews? When bodily lust comes back in and he just goes, "What's the news?" And you go, "I don't know." But Marjorie's thinking of him, you know. She misses him. Honest. Of course she does. Yes.
And
She misses
Geppetto
his-
is still doing very nicely, thank you.
Yeah, she misses the coin, I suspect. Other thoughts? Nope. Okay. We go. Oh, Helen.
We haven't got his new clothes.
No.
Well,
True.
well,
I
no.
was
'cause-
expecting him to come on. Maybe he is better dressed and no one's remarked on it.
Mm.
Well, he's
or
been
more
off with reason,
fancifully.
of course, so he won't have
Oh, yes,
been
of
in
course.
receipt of the clothes. After what's happening here, maybe the clothes will come into evidence, or maybe they're just a picture in our mind's eye. You know, like Mrs. Grundy. Lois.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to draw your attention to that lovely line, hence 40 pence, quoth she, Jack Noble is a bed. Because a noble's a coin, isn't it? I forget what it's worth, but it's worth more than 40 pence. The point is that, you know, this is what the sex worker says to worldly affection when he's knocking on the door. And it just means, you know, you can't afford me. I've got somebody richer here. I just thought it was a great line.
Helen.
Yes, 40 pence is 3 and 4 pence, which is a very solid fraction of a 20 shilling pound. I used to know what a noble was. I used to think it was 13 and 4 pence, but I could be very, very wrong there. Have you looked it up, Alan?
I haven't looked it up, but I have a vague recollection it was 6 and 8 pence.
Then
Which
it's
would be
double.
80 pennies rather than 40 pennies.
A
Yeah,
noble
then it's
was a
double.
coin worth 80 pence. Yeah.
Yeah,
6
So
and 8.
it's twice.
6 and 8
So it's
real
double.
money.
so it's double.
Mm.
Yeah, 6 and 8 pence was a professional fee.
Sarah.
Just going back to why we haven't had the clothes yet. I mean, the fact that he's just decided that he's, you know, going to go back and try and impress Marjorie. This would be the point where he would get the clothes. Surely, this would be like in the cycle of human behavior. We'd be like, all right, I need to really go. I need to get back to Marjorie. I need to really impress her and, you know, make a big show. So surely now would be the time that he would go and get the clothes. As opposed to when he was where he was before, which was he was more, in the reasonable frame of mind.
Yes. Well, we've got the return of Pride, who is the clothesmonger amongst them all, the setter of fashion, the trendsetter. So let's linger with Pride for a moment.
Sirs, remember ye that this other day man promised me, even in his stead, that I should with him dwell. And now, I hear say, the wild worm is come into his head, so that by reason only he is led. It may well be so, but I am sure that reason shall not alway with him endure. Methinketh that sensuality doth not his part, according to the duty of his office. For nobody can better turn a man's heart, nor yet a readier mean devise to put away such foolish fantasy than sensuality, if he lust to essay, for he is chief ruler when reason is away.
And sensuality, having been named, now enters.
Yea, a ruler will I be, though reasons say nay.
Ah, sensuality, welcome by this day. What, tidings good?
Yea, by my fay, as good as can be told. I have brought this man to his old guise.
Hast thou so?
Yea, on warranties.
Now, forsooth, I give thee prick and praise. Thou art worth thy weight of gold. Of this tidings I am glad and fain. But shall I be welcome to him again, and all our company?
Yea, heartily, as welcome as ever ye were before.
God's blessing have thine heart, therefore. Thus am I in thy debt, more and more.
Japes, why say ye so?
For I speak it after my mind, thou art to me always so kind. But where shall I our master find? To him I will go.
He is busy, hark in your ear, with little Marjorie, you wot where? and as soon as I had brought him there, I came my way apace, and because he should not be alone, I left with him worldly affection. And other errand had I none now to this place, but even to show you what is done. And from hence I must anon for to seek another companion to give attendance.
Oh, who is that?
Merry Gluttony, our master calleth for him busily, as sawest thou him not?
No, certainly, to my remembrance.
I must go seek him without any tarrying. But pride, I warn you of one thing while I think thereon. When my master and ye shall meet, in any wise see that ye him greet in the old fashion, and make as though ye knew nothing of his diverse and variable dealing. Keep that in your breast. Ye cannot do him more displeasure than thereof to make report you. Therefore let it rest. To speak thereof, it is high treason.
And then Sensuality goes out.
I am glad you warn me thus in season. I shall be the better ware by this warning. I shall be wise, and do as ye me advertise. The take thereof no care.
And here enters Sloth.
Will ye be wise, Squatter? Marry, that's a thing. My God, you had need to have better warning, or ye bring that about.
What, brother Sloth, from whence comest thou?
Straight from my bed, I may God avow. Mine eyes be almost out, for lack of sleep. But this, sir, to you, methought ye called me Sloth right now. Peace, no more of that. I have a new name as well as ye.
What is that? Ease?
Yea, pardie, but it forceth not, while our master is not present. Between us twain I am content. Call me what you will. Where is our master?
Wottest thou ne'er?
No.
No more do I.
There. Thou shalt dwell with me still. Thou art as good a waiter as I.
I shrew the better of us both, hardly. But surely we do not well. We shall not continue with yonder man, but we await better now and then. Therefore, by my counsel, let us twain go together to seek our master.
But wottest thou whither we shall go now, to find our master?
I shall essay. Thou shalt see me guess the way, and, happily, find him too. Now must I to the stews, as fast as I may, to fetch this gentleman. But, sirs, I say, can any man here tell me the way? For I came never there. You knew the way, pardie, of old. I pray thee, tell me, which way shall I hold? Will ye see this whoreson cuckold? I trow he cannot hear. Now it were arms to clap thee on the crown.
And now cometh in man and worldly affection.
Why, be there any cuckolds in town?
Yea, I durst hold thereon my gown, that there be a score. But for God I cry you mercy, for by my faith I wist you not so nigh. Had I wist it, I ensure you faithfully, that word I would have forbore.
No force, hardly, it touches not me. But worship, tell me, where have you been? Methinketh long since you see.
Sir, it is no marvel. Bade ye not me the last day to go purvey for your array, and you remember well?
Yea, fort God, have ye done the same?
Sir, it is no marvel. Bade ye... Oh, no, sorry, that's the wrong line. I've just said that. Yea, by the rood, else were I to blame. All thing is already in pain of shame, else I quit me ill. The tailor told me yesternight that all your garments were ready dight. Will ye go thither and have a sight?
Yea, marry, with a good will.
Will ye that I go with you also?
I wot never whether ye may attend thereto, for ye do nothing, but even after your own sweet will.
Why should I ever wait, nay, that I would kneel? For, to be a king, I may not endure continual business. I was never used thereto, doubtless. I should not live a year if I followed you, I'm sure. Ye stir and labour out of measure. I saw you never your peer. Ye ween there nothing to be do, but if ye put your hand thereto. And I wis that there is no need. Ye have servants, that be true and just, if it would like you to put them in trust, and quit well their meed, what should I attend for you to please? When I see well, ye set by none ease, which belongeth to me.
Why, ease, what meanest thee thus to say? I do but eat, drink, sleep, and play, and none other labour per day.
Yea, ye may say what ye will, but I can never see you idle, quiet as ye should be. Your body laboureth as doth an hackney, that beareth the burden every day. A pity it is to see, and your mind on that other side is never idle nor unoccupied. I wish it grieveth me to see you demeaned that wise. I trow ye be set all on covert eyes.
Prophesize, nay, let be. It is a thing of greater cure that sticketh in my mind, be thou sure.
So methought by the rood. I wist as much there was something, by your lowering cheer and your sighing, that was not all thing good. But what is the matter? I pray you heartily.
It was, thou canst not devise the remedy with all the wit thou hast. But this is the case, to tell it shortly. A thing was told me as I came hereby, how reason purveyeth fast, and maketh very great labour and ordinance to dash us all out of countenance. And for that purpose he hath gathered a great company.
What to do?
I wot ne'er I, but as I suppose, it is to bring me in captivity, and to take from me my liberty. So he hath oft said.
Fear ye that matter?
Nay, never a deal, but I care for it, wit ye well. Yet I'm not afraid, for I will withstand it proudly. And, sirs, I trust you will stand thereby, when it shall need.
Yea, by the way that God went, or he have of you his intent, first shall I bleed the best blood that is in this carcass.
Well is, go thy way hence apace, and make therein good speed. Call my company all together, and bid them every man come hither. That is with me a feed.
Marry, sir, that shall we do.
And then Sloth goes. I'm suggesting he's exiting, but probably not with good speed. I'm just suggesting that possibly he won't be the fastest messenger in the block. Anyway, Sloth exits.
Worship, in the meantime, let us go see my new apparel.
Will ye so? Now, for your lady's sake, go do it on you, and I undertake it shall become you well.
Worldly affection, abide thou here, for I will go do on this new gear, as worship doth counsel me.
And exit Man and Pride, and that's where we stop for this session. So yes, the clothes are almost here. They've almost, the delivery man's arrived. They're going to get them. It's going to be fine. It's interesting. The sudden offstage subplot suddenly flown in. Reason's getting a posse together, and he's coming for them. That's that happened somewhere apparently, and that's what they're going to do something in response. Lois.
Yeah, there's the speech of Pride on page 45, bottom of the page. This is quite interesting, but I think we need to unpick it or something. I mean, he says, now must I to the stews as fast as I may to fetch this gentleman. Then he says, but sirs, I say, can any man here tell me the way? For I came never there, I bet. He must be addressing the audience there, right?
It looks like business. I've got. Does anyone in the audience know where we can find the stews? I'm sure no one here knows the way. Do you? No, of course not.
What about the end of this? Will you see this horse and cuckold? I trow he cannot hear. And that seems to me to be addressed to Man, because Man comes on and says, why be there any cuckolds in town?
Yeah, because of course, Man thinks that he is Marjorie's only customer. So he's talking about cuckolds. Man comes in and goes, "You're not talking about cuckolds." No, other cuckolds. Yeah, absolutely nothing to do. Ooh. So it's a nice bit of business. I really like that.
Doesn't Pride say something about, I didn't think you were within earshot?
Yeah.
I said. So.
Alan.
I just wonder if the part of the original household audience might have been the Bishop of Winchester.
Ah, yeah, one of the stews. Yeah.
Eric.
I was going to say that the bit about the clothes is starting to remind me a bit of that. I can't. Is it a fairy tale? I don't know the story. The whole thing about like the Emperor's new clothes, where he ends up wearing nothing.
Yeah.
It's sort of like they're setting up something, and it's probably going to go horribly, horribly wrong.
Well, he's going to look like a tit, basically. I mean, that's basically what this whole thing is set up for quite a long time. It's interesting. Man sort of has Sloth's number, isn't it? You know, can I go with you as well? And he just turns to him and says, "Well, I can't control anything you do, mate. You're just always plodding along behind me. Why do you ask?" Something quite interesting about that. It's interesting. They're leading in covetous again. They've second mention for covetous of, you know, something on the horizon, but not quite coming on yet. But it's this whole thing of reasons building up this posse, which brings us back to the Psychomachia and Castle of Perseverance sort of ideas of good and evil fighting it out in kind of way, which goes back to very early Christianity. In ways that are really quite disturbing when you actually read the originals. Yes, other thoughts about this scene, this scenette? Sarah.
Eric put in the chat that he was reminded of the Sloth from Zootopia. I just think there are sort of several great ways you could play Sloth. You could absolutely play him as that character, and it'd be really funny. Or you could sort of do him as a kind of sort of hazy hippie. I was thinking of like Dylan from the Magic Roundabout, or the other character I was thinking of, which is not so universally well known, but there's Helen will know. There's a character called Lady Bertram in Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility, who basically she sits on a sofa.
Mansfield Park.
Park, yeah.
Mansfield Park. What did I say?
Sense and Sensibility.
Yeah, no, wrong book. Mansfield Park. Yeah, she sits on a sofa and strokes a pug, and just is the most like vague, like, oh, what's going on, like all the way through. And that would be another quite fun way of playing Sloth. So there's so much you could do with that character.
Well, I have to say, from what we were talking about before we went online, I've always gone for Bagpuss myself as Sloth. It's just long opening yawn, and you've got to be careful with Sloth, of course, not making it too slow. That's always the danger in performance of someone like Sloth, is that you actually take the energy out because you think, he must be slow, and whereas in fact, actually, you've got to be aware of that in a performative context. For everyone who's been one of the 7 deadly sins in Dr. Faustus, that's always the danger. Always the danger. Not much dialogue, but you can totally destroy that scene if your Sloth overdoes it. Alan, I saw a hand.
Yeah, I mean, I was basically trying to get into the lines, can I be asked to do anything?
Oh yeah, no, I don't think you were going too slow at all. That wasn't a
no, I didn't take it as such, but that was the way I was trying to get it across. Of what you mean? You want me to actually come with you? I've got to expend energy.
It's just, I love the way they send him off to do the message. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's that thing of there was a line earlier. There was something about the way it was written out, and it's much earlier than this.
A bit with etc. at the end. I mean, that sometimes means the actor is supposed to ad lib, doesn't it?
I think it's just a longer quote, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was a Latin tag, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yes.
Yeah.
There was something much earlier about the way it was. Oh, much earlier, much earlier. And as we're going into extra time, we can go into the play generally. When Sensuality returns and does the crying, which I presume is strategic, the lines really, there seem to be pauses inherent in the way that it's lined out, that they make for your sake, and that there are weep pauses in the way it's lined after that, and there's little bits in there where moments of business seem to live in actually the way the dialogue is occasionally lined out that way. Most of it's very regular verse, but that was just a moment where it felt quite clever. So we're going into final thoughts of the session. You can open out to, for those who've been here for the play, either in practice or in spirit for the last two sessions. Thoughts on the play so far. I'll go to Sarah first, who was in spirit here yesterday, if not actually in the room.
Yeah, I was here in spirit. I've said it already, but I'm really impressed by the psychological coherence of this play. It's incredibly sophisticated, considering it was, did you say 1490 it was written?
Yep.
I mean,
Henry VII.
It just strikes me as being a lot more sophisticated and sort of psychologically savvy than a lot of later morality plays that I've been part of, you know, these sessions with. So I'm just massively impressed with it. I'm actually genuinely looking forward to finding out what happens tomorrow, which I have to say isn't always the case with morality plays. And I think there's scope for staging this. There's just quite a lot of really nice business in it that would just come up really well if you put it on stage.
I think there's an interesting thing about when we're talking about interiority of characters, is that a lot of it's to do with the context of performance. You know, there's a reason why most medieval drama is not going inside. It's because people are shouting outside very loudly. Then when we come to indoor performance, things does start getting more interior-y, but I think with a lot of the morality plays or interludes that we've looked at have had a very small cast. That's to double in quite an extreme way, and so you have to perform in quite a bold way to make sure you're different from the last person you played. And that's my pet theory on this, is that actually this is not doubled to any extreme. There is some doubling going on. It's long enough as well for you to have time to play with those games. If you're doing an interlude that's only an hour long with a cast of 4 who are chopping and changing every 5 minutes, who you can never do a scene with a reasonable number of characters in, you're performing a very different kind of play. And it reminds me also of it's a different kind of text, but the two liturgical mystery plays that we did, which are only 20, 30 years in the future from this, which are so psychologically driven, written at the same time or existing at the same time as mystery plays, but because it's an indoor performance, it's a totally different beast and could have been written 50 years later from, you know, our idea of what theatre was like. So the thing is, it's not that people couldn't write interior and psychology, the context did not drive in that direction. And this play to a degree does. And so it's, form creating content, I think is a really important point. I see a hand from Alan, so I'm going to head to him for his final thoughts.
Right, yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering whether the answer on, you know, the psychology, which Sarah, I think, has picked up on there, is the fact that this was actually written for what was effectively an intellectual elite audience. You know, I think you said that Thomas More would have been involved as a young man with performances of this nature. And it could therefore deal with things in a much different way from the sort of material that I've worked on with you in the past, Robert, of basically the shouting from pageant carts aimed at the general populace.
I think you've got to be careful about talking about an intellectual elite within a household. Yes, many of them will have had an education, but the overall room will be various. And it's not fundamentally different to the kind of education that later interludes would have, that if we're thinking on those lines as well, that the household still would be composed of a similar selection of people. That's not to say you're not entirely wrong, but I think we've got to be careful about making too big a distinction.
The primary audience would have been the master of the house and his guests, who would probably have been the more elite characters.
But then I'm not sure how intellectual this is being. I mean, a lot of this is discussing going to the stews, and and those sorts of things, which stuff of life. We haven't had a big, heavy intellectual discussion, really. We've had a few speeches. We haven't had that much interplay. I'm just worried about going too much along those lines as a general cultural statement about things which I think is a bit too.
No, I'm as ever just reacting to what I've heard without any necessarily historical or fundamental background for it. It's a reaction, an instinctive reaction. Thank you, Eric. I've noticed your chat.
Yes, master of the house.
Master and a half.
Yeah. Lois, final thoughts.
Yeah, picking up on that about audience. I mean, this does feel to me like a very sophisticated intellectual play, as a lot of those early Tudor ones are, much more sophisticated than anything that came along for years, really. And even when you compare it to, say, Blackfriars plays in the early 17th century, which are also catering for an intellectual and sort of young crowd, I think, I mean, some of the stuff is also very funny, but it's also funny in a fairly sophisticated way. I mean, people saying things ironically and expecting the audience to pick up the double meaning, for instance. Like all that talk about the nunnery and the poor Marjorie's gone into a convent. Oh, isn't it sad? I mean, this sort of audience would obviously get it. Also, I think one thing about, again, the post-Reformation plays is a lot of them really are propaganda. I mean, they were written to really belt out a message to the audience, and characters more or less say that. I can still remember, I think Jesus saying in a play about the temptation in the wilderness, glares at the audience and says, I may have been fasting, but that doesn't mean you should fast. And, let's not get any of this wrong. Whereas here, it's much more, playful, I think, with the crowd.
Eric, final thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know much about like what would have been happening at the time, but just in terms of the plot, we've seen like man sort of go from, I've got no idea what I'm doing, to like trying to be in charge of these people, and or these like feelings and sort of I don't know, is reason a feeling? I don't know, maybe. But sort of like, man is sort of like, oh yeah, I'm in charge, so I have to tell him what to do. But reason is trying to govern me and like sort of tell me what to do, and basically bore me to death, as far as I can tell. But it's just interesting, this sort of shift in who's in charge, sort of. But then also, if he's trying to take back power from reason, basically. But it kind of also feels like the we kind of can imagine what the ending is going to be. It's not going to end well.
Helen, final thoughts.
Well, if you're thinking about doubling, I would like to point out that Reason spent an awful lot of time on the bench this session. I mean, Reason may have been talked about, but Reason wasn't there saying anything. It was quite amazing how, for such an important character, it wasn't there. So I'm wondering whether there is some doubling here. The other thing, actually, I've been rather preempted by Lois, who said more or less what I was going to say, which is that this is so much a pre-Reformation play. I mean, it lacks that didactic. No, it is didactic. It lacks that you're all doomed edge. It holds out the possibility of grace all the time, and it doesn't say you're born to be damned. It's it has a different feel to it.
Yes, there was a the lack of spittle. The lack of spittle is very very evident.
Yes, that puts it better.
Or more grossly. Lynn.
The thing that I was going to invite people to meditate on was the relationship between two of the allegorical presences, nature and reason. And I think it's really interesting that reason is framed as being very closely associated with nature, in fact, kind of an agent of nature, there under nature's auspices, which is not a way I think we are used to thinking of the universe. You know, living in a post-Darwinian and perhaps more importantly, a post-Freudian world, we think of nature and reason as being sort of opposed to one another. We have instinct and desire, on the one hand, and reason on the other, rather than reason being an attribute of nature or something that nature confers on us. So I just think that's a really, it's worthwhile to think about the way the universe was constructed in this culture, where nature and reason go together rather than oppose each other. And I was thinking, oh, that's very our way of looking at them as opposites or difficult to reconcile is very modern, until I was listening to Helen talk about this being not as didactic, not as polemical, not as damning, or as spittle inflected as post-Reformation plays, and that may be a factor too. That in the pre-Reformation Catholic world, God gives you reason; He gives you the ability to work through this in a healthy way, and maybe the divorce between reason and nature didn't happen as late as I was thinking. Maybe it was starting to happen in the Reformation rather than in the early 20th century.
It's interesting you were talking about the connection between Mother Nature and reason in that sense, because it reminds me of that other important text in this line where when something is wrong with a teddy bear, a spotty man will take the bear to Mother Nature and instill it with reason, with magic dust. Sorry, I'll stop talking about Super Ted now. But it's sorry, but it's a very good point, and I apologise for throwing in random late 80s, early 90s animation references. Francis.
Yeah, I'm not enjoying this as much as other allegorical, morality plays we've done. Although I agree with Sarah, there's a sort of psychological authenticity to it. Yeah, the language and the writing doesn't sit well with me. Yeah, I find it quite difficult.
Do you miss the spittle? Do you need that Bale edge?
No, I quite like that aspect of it, actually, now that you mention it, that it lacks the spittle. And it comes once again from my Catholic upbringing. I mean, that's what you're taught, that you can find grace through God.
Okay. Any other final thoughts, Eric?
I just have a question, because Lynn was talking about nature and reason and how we oppose them, but you've always been talking about Mother Nature, and I just realized, is it Mother Nature or human nature that we're talking about?
That's a good point. I may have added Mother Nature onto that for the purpose of a joke. I think there was a reason why I said that, but maybe I'm entirely wrong.
I don't think it's human nature. I think it's nature. It's much more Mother Nature, though it may be male.
No, I'm fairly certain it was gendered as female.
Uh-huh.
That's I think why
Dame
I started
nature.
calling it Mother Nature. Just to touch on the doubling, I mean, I don't think it's an extreme doubling. I mean, it's not like it's going for an interlude troupe that's going to be touring with 4 or 5 people, because the opening scene is very, very, there's a lot of people. There's about 8 people on stage at the very beginning of the play, but there are also about 20 characters. So I think there is some internal doubling. I mean, the household might have stood it, but I think in practical terms, you'd probably bring it down to a manageable number of actors. Lois.
Yeah, one thing that kept puzzling me actually was how often somebody just seemed to stay there on the stage with nothing to do while other people were having the scene. It's exactly the opposite of what you'd expect if there was a lot of doubling. I mean, they would get the hell out of there and change and come back as someone else. And so it's as if I started wondering again about performance conditions. Was it a very large hall? Was it just too complicated to go all the way off stage if you were going to be coming back fairly soon? Was it simpler just to stand there or perhaps stand a bit away from the other actors?
I think we discussed a little bit yesterday about the fact that there are an awful lot of people standing around for a long time, and whether there's a sort of deliberate tableau image thing going on there. In terms of the actual performance space, I don't know if I've got some notes on potential options on that. In terms of the actual dimensions of what the hall might have been, if it was Lambeth Palace. The problem is, even if we introduce dimensions into the size of the space they'll be performing it at, it depends how many people you put in it, as ever. So yeah, they could have had, I think 38 feet across as a potential if they're going endways, but that doesn't mean it is actually that wide. There are options there, but yeah, it does seem that is part of the design, is that some people are there on stage for a long time of purpose. But whether that is to do with doubling, I mean, it might not be doubled at all. It could be. I have no data on that front.
It's
Any
a
other
pretty
thoughts?
big room, though.
Yeah, but it depends how many people you put in it. That's the problem. But yeah, it's big. 38 feet by 90 odd. It's massive.
And very cold when I was last there.
Again, how many people are in the room? You've got to include the people as heating.
Yeah, but I mean, I was there for a lecture and we froze to death.
Especially if man is naked at the beginning for 30 minutes.
Or it might be all right if he's in leather. Right, I'm going to close the session now. We have one more session to go on the final third of Nature by Henry Medwall. If you have any thoughts, throw them into the comments. You can follow us online. We're on Twitter at Beyond Shakes. In fact, we're on various social media platforms at Beyond Shakes. Just hunt for that. It's always the same if we're there. And we will return with these wonderful people next time, or many of them, for the end of Nature. Thanks to all the readers, and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.